Welcome back, everybody. A decision that's impact will be felt across the country. The Supreme Court justices today limiting how far individual judges can go when ruling on cases. This stems from an executive order from President Trump's very first day in office, changing the interpretation of birthright citizenship. To give us some insight is retired district court judge and now criminal defense attorney Charlie Baird joining us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Avery.
So we know this ruling narrows the ability of judges to issue what are called national injunctions. For folks who maybe aren't familiar with the justice system, explain what an injunction is and what this change really does.
Well, it's a significant change in the landscape of federal jurisprudence. Before, a federal district court judge sitting in California, for example, could enter an injunction that impacted the whole state, the whole United States, all the way to Maine. And everybody in the United States had to follow or abide by that injunction until the case was ultimately resolved in courts. What we have here is we have 22 states that have injunctions, but 28 other states had not sought injunctions. And so the Trump administration's argument was, these 22 different states are impacting states that do not want the injunction to be imposed. And so that was the argument presented before the United States Supreme Court and resolved today.
We know this underlying case had to do with the executive order on birthright citizenship. So talk about where that stands after the court's ruling today.
Well, actually, the United States Supreme Court today did not address the merits of the ultimate decision of birthright citizenship. That has been a product of our constitutional law since the ratification of the 14th Amendment shortly after the Civil War. And it was always thought that anybody born in the United States had a birthright of citizenship. President Trump's executive order challenges that, and it says, if you are here, if you're a child of parents who are here illegally, or if you were here as a result of, born as a result of parents who had work visas, then you do not enjoy birthright citizenship. So that ultimate question of whether or not those individuals impacted by the executive order have birthright citizenship or not is what is ultimately going to be decided, probably all the way to the United States Supreme Court again.
Talk to us about other cases that are in progress that have to do with national injunctions. What does today's ruling mean for those?
Well, it has the same impact, I believe, that any other executive orders that have been impacted by a district court's injunction, staying the executive order until more of a final resolution is reached on the merits of the case, those will be done away with as well. The remedy mentioned by Judge Barrett in her opinion was that those individuals impacted by the executive order could, rather than come into the courts as individuals, could come into the courts as a class action. And I understand that there's already been a class action filed on behalf of those individuals seeking birthright citizenship. And also Judge Barrett gave the courts 30 days before the opinion of the Supreme Court went into effect to make those readjustments on how they might want to align the cases and the parties.
So talk to us, without the relief of a nationwide injunction, we know that more people would likely have to, as you said, file their own lawsuits, more groups or individuals, or class action lawsuits. But what kind of impact would that change have on a court system that we've long reported on seeing delays and backlogs?
It's going to have a devastating impact, I would think, if individuals now have to come forth in these states, specifically these 28 states that did not recognize or wish to recognize the injunctions to begin with. Those courts could absolutely be flooded with individuals, and it could have a collateral impact of the immigration and enforcement, the enforcement of immigration laws across the state as well in those 28 states. So it could crowd the dockets not only in the district courts but also in the immigration courts.
Is there anything else that you can share about the reaction from those either sitting on benches across the country or attorneys like yourself practicing in the courts? What are you hearing from folks who will potentially be impacted by this change?
Well, I think the headline was that this was a big win for President Trump. And I think that on the surface it was. But I think as soon as these are converted to class actions, which I expect all of them will be, uh, as they challenge these executive orders going forward, I expect that it's going to be pretty much the same. There's still going to essentially be nationwide injunctions until these very fundamental issues are resolved. I mean, birthright citizenship is about as fundamental of an issue as you can have in the United States of America. And it's just ultimately got to be resolved. And I can't imagine it being resolved without some type of enforced injunction now via a class action lawsuit.
Lots to follow and lots to still see how those are resolved. But thank you so much for joining us today and for your insight and expertise.
Thank you, Avery. Good talking to you.